elements to our services over and above and beyond what just purely the selling. So that's us.
Andrea, over to you.
Yeah, thanks a million, Anton, for having me on this webinar. We're a sales agency outfit based in Dublin Fashion City, which is the center of where all the agencies and the distributors are. We've been in business since 97, whatever that makes us, 23 years. And currently there's 2 of us in Dublin and there's 3 in the UK. We predominantly work with the Irish market, and we've been working with the same 2 companies from day one. And we've had different agencies in between. And about 10 years ago, it was actually through Anton took on a new agency, and that's been going very well. And we're now expanding into the US. So we're very similar to what Jules is saying. We don't just do sales. We offer an array of services, including PR, consultancy, especially now with the changes that have been in the industry. It's very important to get the right brand and the right mix of brand and the right people to talk to one another. And sometimes agencies could be just one of the options. Sometimes consultancy is a better way. So we look at different things. We know the market extremely well. That we've been around quite a while. And I couldn't tell you all the figures as much as Jules did, but we did a little bit less than Jules did.
Okay.
But that's probably us, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, okay, so better introduce myself because many of you will know me, but not everybody. So I've always been in fashion. In fact, I do this whenever I give a talk. I always go, if you cut me, there's no blood coming out. It's fashion, because that's been my world since I was a kid. My parents were in retail, manufacturing. I was an agent for many years, but for the last 25 years, I run my consultancy. We focus on one thing only, that is we help fashion brands to find agents and distributors globally. So that's us introduced. I think what we're going to do is just start off with some basics about the UK. The idea is to give you a practical introduction to what happens in the UK. It's really difficult to get accurate figures. They vary so much, but you're going to get some idea of what happens. So the population of the UK is 65 million, and the spending on clothing is something like 32.5 billion, which is pretty amazing. In Ireland, North and South, the population is 6 million approximately, and the spending on clothing is 2.6 billion. So the 2 markets together are a very rich place for people to sell to. And, within Europe, I think only Germany is bigger, really. The number of independent retail fashion shops now, this came from a survey, and I don't think it's correct because I think it's nearer to about 6,000. And I think of those, about balance here are really made up of small fashion groups and some uni-brand groups that sell their own clothing. But again, there's a lot of independent retailing in the UK. It has gone down, but it's changing all the time. And in Ireland, we reckon there's a similar amount, 1,000. If anything, there's a few more independent retailers in the Irish market. These are the names of the key retail shops and stores, the key online shopping stores. I'm putting them up here because there's a recording of this, and if any of you are interested, you can get to know the names afterwards once we've finished the webinar, when we send out a copy. The leading continent where clothing is imported from is Asia and Oceania into the UK. This includes Ireland as well. And the value of UK apparel from the EU is 8.1 billion. So again, the EU production is really important for us. Key selling regions in the UK, there's 2 options here. There's probably more than 2, but Southeast, including London, Southwest, Midlands and South Wales, Northeast, including North Wales, Scotland. And other people do it differently. You just have South, Midlands, Wales, North Scotland. but many agents work with sub-agents, so that's the way they cover the country. In Ireland, it's a bit simpler. It's usually north and south, but these days, certainly most brands have one agent to cover the north and the south. I'm just showing you these because I think they're quite interesting. This is quite old because there's no up-to-date information here, but consumer spending on clothing from 2005 to 2018 has gone from 44 to 70 million. So after 18, I suspect it's going to go down a bit, but it has been on the rise consistently. And there's footwear and clothing from 205 to 218 in millions has gone down all the way up again from 44 to 71. And again, that's going to go down now. We must expect that. Just the basics here. The payment terms are as you see them on the screen. The average agent commission is 12.5, but some people get more. Jewelry and accessories brands are often higher. These are not very different to Europe. They're much the same. And distributors usually want 25 to 30% discount on the wholesale price. And again, these are all flexible. So that's the basics, the information. So I thought now we could just share some questions with Jules and Andrea to see what they think. So I suppose the first thing I want to ask you is a question which you didn't know you're going to get, which is how have you been dealing in the last few weeks with COVID for yourselves, and how has it been? How are you managing? Because I guess we're all struggling with being on our own for too long. So Andrea, what about yourself? How's it been?
Yeah, so we're just back out of the lockdown, literally a couple of days. Last week was the first time the shops reopened. So in between, there's a major feedback.
Yeah, I think somebody's using another piece of electrical equipment around.
Okay. Okay. So we just started the lockdown last week. In between the past 12 weeks or whatever it's been, I kept in touch with all my customers as much as I could. Some of them didn't really want to talk to me, but most of them did. In fact, I organized a couple of little Zoom talks as well, just to keep in touch with everybody and share the pain as such. It has been, I think it went from the first couple of weeks where I was hoping to come up with some fantastic idea to resuscitate the whole thing, to realize that there was not a huge amount I could do. So I kept in touch with the customers. We kept talking. We kept agreeing on what to do next. And the shops reopened, and we're now in the process of getting stock in that was being delivered when the COVID started. Looking at the finances and all of that. So it's been the interesting part of it all. I think it's been a good conversation. Everybody's kind of agreeing. Look, we're running this together. Let's figure out what we can do. So I can't take every single thing, but I'll take something.
We're going to go back to some of the points you raised a little later then. Jules, how's it been? You've been with your family and you've been locked down?
Yeah, luckily I moved out of the city in December to the middle of a forest. So out of the thick of London, and I couldn't have timed it better. I've got 2 young children. And personally, I've had the best 3 months of my life. It's been wonderful.
Yeah.
Aside from that, business has undoubtedly been the most challenging it's ever been. We've been on a skeleton team. I furloughed. I put people off work at the start, and my management team have been amazing. Well, and the skeleton team, all of them have been amazing at holding holding the fort. And I've enjoyed talking to independents, and they've not all been nice conversations, but it's been nice reconnecting with everybody. And on a positive, a lot of the cancelled orders we saw at the beginning of the lockdown, so a lot of them have been reinstated. We've been blessed with some good weather here. And then a lot of people have probably knee-jerked and cancelled products in the early period, and with a bit of discount we've had to give, which is quite unusual, but these are unusual times, additional discounts. We've managed to get a lot of product in now the stores and warehouses are reopened. So yeah.
Okay, interestingly for me, I love the lockdown. It was great because I didn't have to answer 150 emails every day. Suddenly it all stopped. it was brilliant. I could actually do things, read a book, try and come up with new ideas. So yeah. So let me ask you, what is it you think you're going to be doing differently this season in terms of how you're going to approach your buyers or how you're going to handle the showrooms?
Yeah. Do you want me to? Yeah. Undoubtedly, it's going to be. One thing about lockdown was from a traditional selling window, it couldn't have come at a better time because we were in between selling periods. So we're just about to embark on a new selling window, traditional selling window. And we're just reopening. But obviously, launches have been very different. They've either been online with our brands, or they've provided Zoom online launches, and they provided videos and assets which we are now able to share with our customers. But if I'm honest, a lot of them are a little bit too long and they're not very personable. So undoubtedly we're going to be doing the majority of our appointments with FaceTime or Zoom in the appointments in the showroom, not face to face with the customer on the phone. So it'll be a new way of selling. I don't think there'll be many appointments done face to face. Key accounts, I think, will make selections from these FaceTime appointments, and then we'll send in samples where possible for internal selections. And it's going to be very different for sure. So,
okay, Andrea, what about you?
Yeah, it's very similar. Our business is predominantly independent. Most of the multiples are UK multiples here anyway, so we would deal predominantly with independent, and it's been a good moment to talk to them because they're quite keen now to get restarted, and a few of them are open to do FaceTime or Zoom or whatever it may be, So with the showroom, we're actually in the process of readjusting the showroom because we don't expect too many people coming the next season. But as Jules says, one thing that I think has created that more and more are talking about try to go back to the August and February sales time because they need to sell what they have in the shops now. So hopefully that will bring us to what it used to be and give us a bit more time for the brands to sell within the shops in spring and summer.
Okay, so here's a question to both of you here because you both work in the English and the Irish market. So I just wondered, when I was an agent, there was always a major difference. I came over to Ireland to do my selling, and it was noticeably different. I just wondered if it's still how you feel, and if it's still the same, or is it very different in Ireland? Andrea.
Okay, we do predominantly the UK. Predominantly Ireland. We work in the UK with one particular brand, and we have a couple of sub agents, but we do cover some of the areas ourselves. And I don't see a massive difference, especially with independence. For me, it's been a very good experience. The agency I work with and the brand I work with has been very good. Although, so it hasn't been dramatically different, I have to say.
You don't see the difference in terms of the type of shop, and that's what I'm really getting at. If the shops have a different approach to volumes, quantity, or the way they buy, you don't think they're different?
Not really. No, for me, my experience has been very similar. I do believe that I do find myself a bit of a fish out of water at times. When in the UK, I don't know it as well as I know Ireland, and using some of the people on the ground, and I still believe that's the way to go. Unfortunately, one particular area I need to cover myself because of different reasons anyway. But we might have an agent there eventually soon. Otherwise, no. The buying pattern and the approach has been very, very similar for me.
Jules?
I think there's a lot of elements that are similar, but I think there's a lot that aren't. For start, I mean, you touched on it before, Andrea. There's a lot of differences in the UK. Is one of the best, most advanced high streets in the world. That's why people come to London to look at the shops. Particularly the lower end of the market, our high street dominates. It dominates that market. So fast fashion and online. Fast fashion, etc., is usually very difficult for brands to enter that arena because we're so good at it. And then there's undoubtedly, as Andrea said, in the UK, there's some big players who dominate the UK. In the last few years, there's been a battle between the two sports kings of sports, JD Sports and Sports Direct, who've bought up vast swathes of failing chains or the branded market. And then there's new players on the block, such as Boohoo, who are buying up any ailing businesses like Karen Millen. This week they bought Warehouse and Oasis. Yeah. And the other difference I think between UK and Ireland is we have got and the rest of the world, we are quite advanced when it comes to online players, whether it be End, ASOS, we've got we're 32% of all clothing in the UK pre-COVID was bought online. It's jumped to 40% during COVID, which is a huge amount, and that's across the whole demographic. That's not even taking into account young kids. Whereas I think Ireland's is a bit behind on the online, certainly having online players, but even the consumer. And then I think there's trends in brands as well. I think if you take a brand like Tommy Hilfiger's, it never really waned in Ireland, did it, Andrea? It's always been popular, and it's whereas the UK, it was, it's only just come back on trend, and for 10 years, it wasn't. I think Ireland's quite influenced by the US. Undoubtedly, the UK is, but Ireland has an even closer link, I think, from a fashion perspective. There's some very interesting similarities and differences, and the independent market in Ireland is so strong.
I was going to say, when I was an agent, I always found, and maybe it's not true anymore, but I always find that the average shop in Ireland used to buy more per square meter than the equivalent shop in the UK. Does that still stand? They tended to buy less styles. They really went for the things they believed in, and they bought more per square meter. Would you say that's not true anymore?
No, I think it's still true. I think, and to qualify what I was saying about the similarities, in my head, I'm taking out all of the ASOS and all of the big players, because unfortunately we have all the JD Sports and all that. I've taken over. So once you start to break it down to the independent there are similarities. I agree, Anton. There's still, as I always say, if you get something right in Ireland, it catches like wildfire. If you get it wrong, it catches twice as bad as wildfire. So we follow within Ireland. Like Tommy Hilfiger was a perfect example. We were like 3 times over the quota that they had given to have Tommy Hilfiger in a shop, and I don't know, was 14% when the rest of the world was 6% or something.
So what can I ask you then? What kind of collections would you say are in demand? I mean, should we just say from which country, or which kinds of collections would you say are in demand in the UK and Ireland? Jules, particular kinds of collections that people are asking you for, you may not have, or that you do particularly well with?
Obviously, we're in fashion, everything's cyclical. So, 5 years ago, having heritage brands, the last 4 years, we've experienced the boom in retro sports and sports brands. So it does vary. Scandinavian brands have been a massive influence in the UK, from the entry price point bestseller group brands to your more premium stuff like Woodward. But in recent times, actually, a lot of French and Italian brands, 80s brands like Versace, Moschino, Givenchy, all these brands have come back into streetwear and are massively on trend. So it changes all the time. Japan's always massive influence on what we do from an inspirational perspective, but also high street perspective with brands like Uniqlo here. And we have many things influencing us, really.
Okay, good.
Similar enough in Ireland.
We've lost your photo, Jules, but you're still there, I think.
Sorry, my dad's calling me. I don't want to put him. Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, speak to your dad. It's important.
No, I'm back. I'm back.
Okay. What's your have you had any particular demands from you? Any collections from? Is the US popular brands from the US or?
No, it's a very similar to what Jules is saying, but a lot of German brands are very popular in Ireland, especially in the men's. And Danish and German tend to be the strongest brands, and Scandinavian in general. But the Danish brands tend to be very strong. No, there's always like the smart casual. There's always the way. Over here, smart casual is we're not very adventurous in Ireland, and so all the brands you mentioned, the retro Italian brands, are very aspirational. There's only a handful of shops that can deal with certain things like that. And unfortunately, when I say unfortunate, there's been a lot of distractions with all the what I call the bedroom fashion brands. The very loose.
So what about price points? Because as we're coming out of COVID and people are looking for bargains, or maybe thinking to next season, I need to change my price points or keep my price points. I don't know. Do you think, is there any feel about that? Jules? Andrea, it doesn't matter.
No, go on, Jules. Yeah.
Well, talking to my key accounts like ASOS and such, like price point has been key during this period. I think people have been looking for leisure wear and tracksuits and such like, but at price point and off price. Talking to a few off price partners, they've all been 100% online partners. They've all been at 80-90% up. So people are definitely looking for bargains. Talking to all the retailers, everyone's come out of lockdown, gone straight into sale. Very few are holding back. So there's definitely a discount culture out there temporarily. How long? Hopefully, we'll get back to the full price model when the new season product starts selling. But
can I sort of push that into something else then before Andrea answers, and that is that there's a big movement, isn't there, where a lot of leading designers have been trying to change the way the seasons work. I'm sure you've read about it. What do you feel about that?
I think it's so admirable. I wish it would happen. We are the worst in, I think it's a pipe dream. We're the worst in the UK. We go on sale earlier and earlier every year. Obviously, we've got Black Friday. I wish the UK government would do something like in France, where they limit the period of time you can go on sale to 30 days. I blame Jesus. If he wasn't born on the 25th of December and he'd been born on the 20th of January, then we wouldn't have this problem. And all the sales would come after his birthday. But
it is just ridiculous, isn't it, that we have, swimsuits in January and warm coats in July. It's just nonsense. You've got the same experience, Andrea.
It is.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it's the same. And as Jules says, we're all hoping that, like, coming out of COVID, a lot of people were saying, I'm going to hold off, I'm not going to sell. Unfortunately, when the shops are not full, they're starting to panic a bit, and sales might start a little bit. But we're conditioned by the high street major chains that they decide to go on sale too early, and unfortunately, the little independent shop. Now, that said, the good optimist part of me, I've seen it with some of my customers. They holding off, and because it's becoming more and more localized. So within a small town, the 2 or 3 shops that are dealing, menswear and ladieswear, COVID has brought back a bit of that. Has brought back a little bit. Okay, better support my local shop, and that's hopefully will bring back a little bit of shopping online. Shopping online is still going to be there. It's not going to change it. But
and what about the Brexit factor? Is that still around? Because it's not settled yet, is it?
No, over here it's been completely, I wouldn't say forgotten, but it has completely been put on the back boiler. Like 12, whatever it was, 6-8 months ago, that's all we could talk about. We were trying to structure, because I sell it both in the north and the south. We're trying to structure the pricing between sterling and euro, and it was the biggest deal. And then COVID happened, and now nobody cares about Brexit. You might change your mind there anyway.
That's right. I mean, I've always been a Brexit skeptic. I didn't ever think it would make any difference to anybody ever. And when we look back in 10 years, we'll be saying, what was that all about? Because, you know, we're all going to work together. And especially after COVID, we're going to find a way to work together, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are you, so you touched on before, Jules, about you're using digital platforms to interest buyers or to do part selling. I mean, how do you think the smaller shops are going to do with that? Sure, the bigger groups can, but I mean, I was having a conversation with somebody today, and she was saying, you know, look, I'm responsible for buying for 3 shops. I said, there's no way I'm going to buy everything online. You know, the responsibility would be too great for me. I don't mind being introduced. Yeah. So, but I'd be really nervous about filling up the shop just seeing it online. What's your feeling?
Yeah.
You agree? Disagree?
Yeah, I think it's a big responsibility for a buyer, and for us. You know, the untold issues we might face with when it comes to delivering. I never ordered that, or I didn't know it was like that. Can I return it? Or it could open up a myriad of other issues. But yeah, I don't see, you know, in London the public transport is open, but there's so many limitations on how often they're going, how you can use it, and people are just scared of getting on it, and it's the main way of getting around London. So it's going to be very hard to do things face to face for the next few months. I think stock will become much more important. We tried to sell in a November delivery during COVID. We sold it into 5% of the customer base for this particular brand, and the brand has taken the decision they've got to order stock. And hopefully, my guys in October will go on the road and show them the product in the flesh and say this is coming in 10 days.
I 100% agree. I think stock's going to be king. If you've got the right stock at the right time, you're going to do really, really well. There's plenty of examples in the past of people who did that. Yeah, Andrea, what about you? What do you feel? Have you any of your brands come up with digital options for you yet?
Not quite. I mean, we're prepared. We have all the. We don't have. I've seen some amazing things done by some brands, but no, we're not quite there yet. Yeah. We do have enough. And I think that's where the key, being the right agent, the right partnership with the brand and with the shop, it would make a difference. Okay, we're all going to take a chance that that particular shirt is exactly the same material as it was last year, and this is a different pattern. I can show it to you. It's my call to tell you that's the truth, and it's your call to, you know, as a manufacturer to stick with that, and as a buyer to believe it. So it's a trusting a relationship for the next few months, because not only the transport and moving around is going to be difficult. A lot of these shops have had to reduce their staff, so they no longer can afford to go and spend a week on the road to buy. So they need to be like, I sent out a survey the other day to say, would you like me to see you in the shop? Would you like to come to the showroom, or would you be interested in have a look at Zoom? And 40% came back saying, I don't mind doing it on Zoom.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. Like, if I'd done that before, they would say, no way, you know.
So another thing that comes up very often when I get asked by brands, you know, because we place a lot of agents in the USA for brands that want to sell over there, and the European brands are not used to the idea they have to pay retainers, you know, to go into showrooms. I've seen it coming here. Some people do that. I just wondered if you ask for retainers, and how do you feel about that? Is that a good or bad way forward? Getting a lot of interference on the line. I'm sorry, I don't know what it is.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got. We don't ask for retainers. It'd be nice if we could, but I don't think it's. I don't think it's reasonable personally. When I've taken brands to the US, I just find it's so foreign to me, and it's such a hurdle for a brand to launch in a market. I do understand the US geographically is so huge, and but we don't get that when we go to Australia, although it's a bigger market in the
Yeah.
US. Yeah, I think if you want to enter a market, then both parties are taking a risk already. We are with our showroom space and allocating resources to it. You are by giving the agency an opportunity to execute a strategy in that market. So I think it's unfair.
What about Andrea? Do you yourself ask for retainers to send? Do you have any of your colleagues do? Do you know what's your
Not that I know of. We never asked, and we never asked them. We believe in the long-term relationship with our brands, and so sometimes what has happened, we've been around long enough, and we've had a couple of recessions. We didn't have the COVID, but we had a couple of recessions where things happened and the business went down. But we worked closely with the brands, and we looked at things like we worked with some bonus schemes, for example, for a couple of seasons to bring us back up to where we needed to be, and that kind of gave us a boost to get us back on our feet as such. But so it's a more relation. I wouldn't feel comfortable enough to ask for a retainer to any brands. Although there's different ways of working, and it's very much both the agent and the brands can be creative about it. Whether it's an extra percentage of there's different ways, and it all really much depending on the understanding where you want to go with that brand. What are the realistic expectations? There's no point to say give me a retainer.
So another hot topic that comes up a lot, because I get a lot of brands who really saying, well, we're all about sustainability. That's the thing, sustainability. That's the key thing. Do you think it means anything to anybody, to the shops care, to people in the street care? I'm not sure.
And as a few years ago, it was all the rage. It was just very much a fad. I think people have forgotten a bit about it. There isn't as much a demand as it used to be. Whether COVID is going to bring it back, I'm not too sure. Up to now, it's been very much, something a little bit like the organic food. I love to have it every day, but I can't afford it, and so I just thanks for the idea, because all brands now do a section of more responsibly produced and so on, but. No, it doesn't seem to be an attraction anymore.
For you, Jules, does it mean anything? Do your buyers ever ask you?
I think we're way behind the rest of Europe. I went to a conference a couple of years ago, and there was 35 speakers, and one of them was from the UK. The rest were from Scandinavia or Northern Europe. So it's and I've looked at sustainable brands from Spain, from Holland, and they've got amazing businesses in Spain, Germany, Benelux. They just don't translate. Here. All the big retailers want to be seen to be doing something. They don't want to pay the extra for it, but they want to be seen to be doing something, and on their website stocking sustainable brands. But whenever I talk to them about how well it's sold, it's only ever sold in markdown. So they all want to be seen to be doing something. Undoubtedly, it's going to become a bigger and bigger thing. But for now, we do look at these brands, but it's very hard to find the right one. And the other issue is that a lot of the brands that provide sustainability, we specialize in young fashion, and they're generally, because of the limitations of what you can do for a true sustainable brand, they're quite muted or plain or stayed in that because of what they can do. Limitations.
No, I agree. Most anything that I've seen is sustainable or organic tends to be very dry, and it doesn't have a life for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why it should be that way. Okay, so we got a question here from somebody from USA. Very simple one. Wonder what you would say about this. How does a small USA-based brand get started over here?
Okay, very simple. Find the right agent.
Okay.
No, but it is. I think it is simple as that. It's simple as that. It's finding the right person to work with the right portfolio, and that person, that agency, That's a major feedback. That agency can help you identify the market, first of all. Sorry.
Yeah.
And very quickly, like when we take on an agency, and we have taken a couple agencies through you, Anton. Sorry, Jules, just try to mute yourself for a second.
Yeah.
1 second, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know if it's that.
Maybe something running in the background on your phone. I don't know.
Okay, that's better. So, for example, when we talk to you, Anton, about an agency, and in the last one we took, as I say, 10 years ago, it was very much what we do. Then we research the market, we speak to the brand, and we'll figure out whether it's something that would work.
Yeah, but do you have an expectation from the brand if he's going to start? You know, I mean, gone are the days when I was an agent, I would go and visit the collection meeting, shake my hand, Mr. Dell, good luck selling. We'll speak to you in 8 weeks' time. You let us know what orders you've got. I mean, it's not quite like that anymore, is it?
Not anymore, no. But it is very much more and more important to have a partnership. You know, it's a partnership. It's understanding. It's the brand. If it's a US brand wanting to come into Ireland or to UK, what is this? What are the expectations? What are the realities of delivering that brand, the price point, and everything? And then, once that's agreed, and normally what we would do, we look at it and we'll know straight away whether it's something we can provide a service, or if not, many times we pass it on to other agents that would be more interest, cover a different area than we would.
No, it's really about what expectations would you have from a brand in order to make, you know, the brand's got a great brand, but, you know, it's like, would you have some expectation they're going to invest in social media? I don't know. That's the kind of thing I think, you know, that they want to know. What do they have to do to make it work, apart from the fact to get you as a good agent? So what about Jules? Do you have, you need to unmute if you're going to speak, by the way.
I have done, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what about you? What are your expectations when a brand comes to you, as in this case, a USA brand?
I'd want to make sure that they've got the capacity to deliver the product and get it into the UK. It's always an issue with duties, etc., from the US. If they need assistance, I can always point them help them out and put them in the right direction, of course. That the price points sit within the market that they're targeting. Make sure they've together with us, that we agree on a distribution strategy from a store perspective. Understand their aspirations from a long-term perspective. Do they want to remain niche? Do they want to go volume? Make sure that's aligned with our expectations. Just make sure there's a synergy between what the brand's short-term, mid-term, long-term outlook is, really, with what ours are.
Okay. So while we're speaking, I just want to say to anybody who's got a question, the bottom of the screen you'll see a Q&A. Please just put your question into there, and we'll try and answer it for you if we don't get too many questions. We've got quite a few to get through at the moment. So it's one which is really technical. I'm not sure I know the answer, but, you know, what are the duties from the USA? I don't know if they vary. So it just varies according to the content of the fabric and the category, doesn't it? I don't think there's one answer to that, is there, really?
No.
And it's not one I'd like to try and answer either.
It's really about where was it made. If it was made in China or came through USA, it's very complex. And I think people like DHL can probably answer questions like that better than we can, because they know what to do. What is your experience of both of you, really, one at a time? Somebody's asking, what's your experience of the way people pay? I know what the terms are, but, you know, what would you say on average the way people pay? And there's going to be a difference, maybe a worse difference, between the big store groups and independents.
The average for an independent is 47 days.
47.
Yes, is the average. We invoice on 30 days, but undoubtedly they take a bit longer. And then key accounts. It varies. I'd say average is 60 days. Some are on 30, and then some of the bigger groups, unfortunately, will require 90. Only a handful, but there are a few. Whereas I know in Spain that some of the department stores require 120, so none of our guys require 120. So yeah.
And what about the independents, the small ones?
Yeah, Indies is average 47.
47 for those.
Yeah.
Similar for you, Andrea?
Very similar, yeah. I would say probably slightly higher than that, but yeah. It is a 30 days, 60 days, and it's normally the term with some brands. But yeah, it takes a little bit, always a couple of weeks extra to get that check. We're still talking checks sometimes, but obviously that bank transfer.
Do people still send you checks?
some of them do. Yeah, the check is in the post. It's still one of the best lines.
The last check I saw was a minute payment from. That's it. The lottery.
To be honest, checks are sometimes good because with our independents, we'll do a payment plan. We might give them 60 days, and we say send us a check for £500 every 2 weeks, and then it's a lot more headache for them to cancel a check and it costs them than it is to cancel a standing order.
Of course.
So yeah, they are old-fashioned, but there is a certain amount of security with them.
Yeah. So another question that's come up, and it's something we didn't really touch on, but it's pretty important, and that with the disappearance of fairs for certainly till the end of the year, and next year, who knows? I mean, what are people doing? If they've got an agent, fine, but if not, I don't think they have any chance to sell, do they? I think it's really tough, and I think that's why agent is king right now. The agent is the one place that's going to be the saving grace, for the fashion profession.
Yeah, because I think all of them have been cancelled now. I think day before yesterday, Mecam was cancelled, and the big footwear show in Milan. And so no, there's nothing happening. I know some regional shows are trying to do some buying shows, to invite to some buyers, invite some brands. But for the time being, it really is agencies and showrooms, and as much as possible.
So I think the agent will have a stronger and stronger role to play, actually. And I mean, I don't feel sorry for the fashion fairs, because they've been making, a lot of money in the last few years from us, and they, now they're really, really struggling, and everything's going online because they think that's the way to keep people. I don't know that it is, but it's interesting that they're trying to do that. But and I noticed some of them have had to refinance because they don't have sufficient funds to keep going. And I think Who's Next is still trying to have a show late in September, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. I have a friend who's a consultant to them, and he says they're really pushing to keep it, but I think visitor numbers will be very, very few. And anybody who's thinking of showing there, I'll be very wary. So what else have we got here? So, how are we going to reach new customers? It's only through an agent. That's the only way that I can see. Okay, I don't really have much more that I want to say or to ask you. I think we've covered most subjects. We've quite a few questions here which I really have been answered originally. Somebody says, one thing here, how can I get into the digital market in the UK and Ireland? Is there an easy answer to that? Jules, you're probably doing it more than others. How do I get into
Does that mean direct to consumer or the digital player?
I think direct to consumer, yeah.
Well, obviously your website will need to. I don't get involved in e-tail direct to consumer as it happens,
okay.
so it's not an area I would be particularly au fait with. But there are third party. You can go onto ASOS Marketplace, and Amazon do a similar thing for in the UK, obviously. And then and then your website, make sure it ships to the UK, has UK specifications for sizing, etc. So the UK consumer can understand what it is you're selling. But yeah, I'm not the best to ask that question.
Okay, that's all right. I think we'll end it there. I think we've covered really a lot of ground. Really, thank you so much, Andrea, so much, Jules, for being here. Thank you all for listening around the world. There is a copy of this coming up. I'm going to put a screen up now, which is going to show you. That's our thank you. We've got 3 more really interesting webinars coming up. One for France, one for China and Scandinavia. The China one is going to be especially interesting. We have the largest importer distributor in China who's going to be my guest and act as a panelist. So I think I'm really looking forward to that one especially. So thank you, Jules. Thank you, Andrea. And thank you, everybody, for listening, and have a nice evening. Take care.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.